Madison Pruitt Trout gained notoriety from her appearance on The Bachelor, but in the years since, Madison's faith has attracted millions of followers on social media.
We fall for the enemy's lies and we buy this fake freedom that he offers, and we realize it's not actually power and freedom that we get, but bondage and shame.
Social media influencer Madison Pruitt Trout joins us now. Hey, Maddie, how are you?
Hi, it's so good to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to have you on. Your dad's the assistant basketball coach at Auburn. I know your mom. She started Unite Us. We've done several stories on what she's doing on college campuses. You were on The Bachelor, and you just stayed true to your convictions, your Christian calling. And a lot of people go on these reality shows at your age, and they want to use it as a platform to make money afterwards and have a social media platform. You have used your faith to do that with your podcast and all of your followers online. Why was that important to you?
Yeah, Jesus showed us what it looks like to be a true influencer, what it looks like to be a true leader, and that is to lay your life down. That is to serve others. And I just want to use my life to serve other people, to testify to the truth, to tell people about the one truth. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. And I've seen a generation ask the question, what is truth? And oftentimes resort to fake truth and their version of truth, and it's leading to bondage, and they're believing lies, and it's leading to bondage. And I want to see a generation, and I want to see people come to know the truth that is Jesus Christ, because only in following real truth can we find real freedom in real life.
Yeah, you and Charlie Kirk, your mom, many others have a heart for the younger generation. This is what Charlie's widow said yesterday.
Charlie's life was a turning point for this country. It was a miracle. Let that miracle that was Charlie's life be your turning point as well. Choose prayer, choose courage, choose beauty, choose adventure, choose family, choose a life of faith. Most importantly, choose Christ.
Madison, you were interviewed by Fox Digital, and you agree with her. You've lived your life that way. Why?
Because Jesus is the answer to everything that we're looking for. And so many times we're going to the same empty well, trying to find the thing that we were made to only be found in Jesus. And like you said, I've built now my life on getting to tell people about the truth. And so whether it's on my podcast and Stay True, whether it's my books, like my new book, Dare to Be True, whether it's my social media, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, I want to spend the rest of my life testifying to the truth, because I've seen from my own life that when I followed the world's version of truth, the world's version of freedom, I came up empty every time. And it was only when I went all in and not only believed in Jesus, but committed my life to following him and obeying the truth, that I found real freedom.
So you said to Fox Digital, I've been feeling the weight like probably a lot of people across America have been feeling, the heaviness, a deep sadness, but at the same time, I felt a conviction to rise up, to be bolder and more unashamed of the truth. Charlie was a man who lived and died for truth. What do you say, Madison, to people who are scared, they're nervous about being so vocal about their faith?
Yeah, I think now is the time more than ever. The time is near. Jesus is coming back. We don't have time to sit back and wait for other people to rise up. It's the time for all of us to use our voice, our stories, our platforms, our resources, our relationships to tell people about Jesus, to live for Jesus, and to make a difference in this world. And I'm so inspired by Charlie's life. It's given me more courage to rise up and to use my voice for what matters most, to live my life like it matters, because it does. And we don't know when our last day will be. I'm inspired by Erica's faith in the midst of trial and heartache, that she's putting her hope in heaven and her hope in Jesus.
Well, Madison, thank you so much for being bold. Congratulations to you and Grant for your little girl, and tell your family hello. God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Massive crowds gathering for an emotional scene in Arizona all day Sunday to honor and pay their final respects to Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk.
The memorial drawing one of the largest public turnouts ever for a private citizen. Some people actually had to be turned away after the stadium quickly reached capacity several hours before the memorial was even scheduled to begin.
So religious leaders and friends of Charlie coming together to speak at the event, as well as Charlie's wife, Erica, who remembered her husband's legacy and revealed her thoughts about his alleged assassin. Wow.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life. That young man. On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him.
So then President Trump then took the stage to honor Charlie's legacy, hailing the Turning USA founder as one of the brightest lights of our times.
America is a nation in grief, a nation in shock, and a nation in mourning. Less than 2 weeks ago, our country was robbed of one of the brightest lights of our times, a giant of his generation, and above all, a devoted husband, father, son, Christian and patriot. Charles James Kirk was heinously murdered by a radicalized, cold-blooded monster for speaking the truth that was in his heart. He was violently killed because he spoke for freedom and justice, for God, country, for reason, and for common sense.
The president then finished his touching remarks by bringing Erica Kirk back up on stage as America the Beautiful rang through the stadium. So sweet. She's hugging him, like you said, Lawrence, earlier, like a father figure.
Yeah, Erica Kirk she talks about it. If anyone has followed her over the years, she grew up with a single mother. And so the embrace of, you need your dad in moments like this to hug you, to get you through this. And I feel like the president was there for that purpose alone.
Yeah, and I'm also struck by when Charlie was asked, who's more conservative? He says, I'm moderate compared to her.
Right.
And I just wonder, too, she's got to take over an organization that quadrupled in size, maybe beyond that. It's got all these chapters of 80,000, I think, now. So you got to be able to take this organization, harness this energy with the immense sadness that you have while having to deal with a 1-year-old and 3-year-old. I think she's going to need some help. And I hope everyone's prepared to do that. But dedicated help, not like I'm going to help you one day, management help, because this organization is now a global force.
Yeah, the service, I think it lasted about 6.5 hours if you include the start time at 2 o'clock with the praise and worship with Chris Tomlin. And he sang, "How Great Is Our God." Everyone was on their feet, raising hands. Brandon Lake sang, and so did Lee Greenwood. There were conservative figures that spoke, Turning Point USA employees, and Dr. Larry Arnn, who is the president of Hillsdale College. And he said, if you want to grow, you have to suffer. You have to study, and you have to think. There were politicians that spoke. You saw Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, RFK Jr., many others, and then Erica Kirk.
So there's a story that I read this morning that I'll share because, Erica brought up what happened when she saw Charlie's body. She wanted to see him, so normally wouldn't do this. But this story out, the surgeon calls Charlie a man of steel. It reveals the miracle factor that likely prevented others from being hurt. People look for the exit wound on the bullet, but the bullet was in him. It failed to exit his body thanks to his strong bones. Other people would have been hurt, maybe killed, but the bullet stopped there.
Part of the reason why Erica Kirk addressed this is because there were so many conspiracy theories going online. People didn't know what exactly happened because you don't see the bullet outside. And they called the surgeon. They wanted to see what was going on. So they talked to the surgeon, but they also talked to the medical examiner who was able to recover the bullet as well. One of the things I also appreciated, Ainsley, is she talked about her love story with Charlie, and then she talked about the role of men in a marriage, and then she talked about the role of women. And then she brought this big commitment and said, Charlie already accomplished that portion when it comes to the men. I'm gonna focus on the young women in America now.
She and Charlie believed in traditional family values. They loved the Lord. They believed what Scripture said. They believed they were called to those convictions, and they stayed true to that. It's been said that Charlie Kirk never raised his voice to Erica or to his children. Erica said every day he would say, "How can I serve you more?" They had a beautiful story. They served each other, and it was their pleasure to do so. Erica never wavered, never complained when her husband was traveling all the time. She felt like it was her role to stay home with the children, take care of them, and be on the road with Charlie whenever she was able to do that. They had a beautiful marriage. It was so evident how much she loved him and how sweet of a guy he was, what a good guy he was, and wickedly smart. If you watch these videos of him, he knew the word. He was able to talk about Aristotle, quiz you on it. He could debate better than many others.
Do you remember when you mentioned the president of Hillsdale? He said, Charlie didn't go to college, right? But he met with him. And he couldn't go as deep as the president of Hillsdale is one of the most intelligent conservative thinkers in the country. He says, you got to do the work. He goes, how do I get all this knowledge about Aristotle, history, the Bible? You got to do the work. And it turns out he signed up and took 31 courses at Hillsdale.
Incredible. On his own.
Online, on his own. So on top of doing all this, he is going to a college that made him smarter as opposed to some of the colleges that would have tried unsuccessfully to convert him.
Right, and the mentor that they've worked together for like the last 5 years. He's going to be on our show. He was on Sean's show last week talking about being in the SUV with him when they were trying to get Charlie to the hospital. And unfortunately, Charlie had already passed away. There was nothing really they could do. And they learned that when they talked to the doctors. But he said that Charlie was such a good student. And he said he was brilliant and that Charlie was willing to put in the work so that he was able to debate. Because the Bible says, as you know, Lawrence, with your mother being a minister, that you always have to be prepared to give an answer. That's right. And Charlie was.
He used to do whiteboard drills.
That's exactly. So one of the families that has been there every step of the way for this family is the Vice President of the United States and his wife, Usha Vance, as well. Erica talked about what Usha told her, the Second Lady of the United States, when she was going through this process.
She told me something. She said, you know when you're on an airplane with your kids and it's the last 15 minutes of the flight and things are crazy, kids are not cooperating, toys are flying everywhere and everyone's screaming, and you think to yourself, I cannot wait for this flight to land. And it's 15 minutes before you land. And she told me, you will get through these 15 minutes and the next 15 minutes after that. Usha, I don't think you realized it then, but those words were exactly what I needed to hear.
Basically putting one foot in front of the other, one day at a time, 15-minute chunks. You can do this. Just continue to be strong and bold, and that's what Charlie would want. I love that she always talked about how Charlie was prepared. He knew this was a possibility, and he was always ready to give an answer here on earth, but also to come face-to-face with his Savior in heaven if the worst happened.
So here is the vice president talking about Charlie's legacy, and the fact is he was very comfortable. As much as he was talking about getting Donald Trump elected, he was also talking about his religion.
And that is perhaps the enduring legacy of Charlie Kirk. I was telling somebody backstage that I always felt a little uncomfortable talking about my faith in public as much as I loved the Lord and as much as it was an important part of my life. I have talked more about Jesus Christ in the past 2 weeks than I have my entire time in public life. And that is an undeniable legacy of the great Charlie Kirk. You know, he loved God. And because he loved God, he wanted to understand God's creation and the men and women made in his image. Now, much has been said over the last week about Charlie's ability to approach any topic, any person in good faith, an achievement that was only possible because Charlie knew that we were all children of God.
I said yesterday when Kayla and I were doing the coverage, this was probably the largest altar call I've ever seen. People, whether it was a prodigal son moment where you're the vice president of the United States and you hadn't really leaned on your faith and felt comfortable talking about it and you felt more comfortable, or the people that stood up in the stands that never knew Jesus, wasn't a part of their life, and said, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. I believe in Christ, and took that first step yesterday. It was truly a beautiful thing yesterday.
I love their minister, and their minister said something to the effect of, you didn't know who I was 5 minutes ago. Right. You're not going to know who I am tomorrow. But in this moment, I have a platform to talk about Jesus. And he asked people to stand up. He said, if you're a Christian and you already know you're saved, sit down. But if you're not sure or you want to accept Christ, stand up. And so many people stood up. Thought that was amazing that Charlie's death is saving thousands of people. And that doesn't even count for the millions that watched yesterday on television. Yeah.
I thought Secretary of War Pete Hegseth also had a fantastic speech. I'm used to him having the phrases from the Bible in there. I thought Don Jr. nailed it, too, because a lot of people say I'm not the softest guy. He had a little bit of joke relief, and then he went into the relationship they had, because they were shoulder to shoulder on a lot of these college events. And you mentioned Michigan State, and I think the other one was Arizona State, where they said, if you go out there, I can't really protect you. He said, we're going out. And he did. He went out there. So Michael Knowles is going to be one of the conservative figures at the University of Minnesota today as the American Comeback Tour comes back.
And he'll have an empty chair for Charlie.
Right. And then after that, they're back in Utah.
On that terrible day, September 10th, 2025, our greatest evangelist for American liberty became immortal. He's a martyr now for American freedom. I know I speak for everyone here today when I say that none of us will ever forget Charlie Kirk, and neither now will history.
So President Trump paying tribute to Charlie in front of a record crowd of 90,000 people, one of the largest memorials ever held for a private citizen. During that service, Turning Point USA played this video of Charlie's final visit to Utah Valley University. Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz was in that crowd that day, and he joins us now. Jason, what are your reflections as we remember the life and legacy of Charlie? What a beautiful memorial service yesterday was, right?
I was so inspired. Our whole family was inspired. Look, there were 4 members of our family that had gone there. I had texted Charlie in advance of the meeting and said, hey, we want to get together. You know, I went out with Ice that morning and invited him to come along. He said he couldn't. And for him to be assassinated in our own backyard, is beyond words. But the way Erica Kirk handled it, that inspiration, the way she exhibited Christ-like approach to this was just totally inspiring. I think the president's been a rock in all this, and J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio inspired us all. It was a great event and very uplifting, and something I think will continue the rest of our lives.
You know, Jason, I've been watching the other side of the political aisle to see how they were going to respond to this. Will they lower the temperature, unify, change their ways? Unfortunately, yesterday I was watching Representative Crockett, and this is what she had to say.
One of the things I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurts my heart is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians for the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color, because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was, specifically to us.
On the day of the memorial.
She's never heard Charlie Kirk. You listen to the message of Charlie Kirk said, hey, if you disagree, let's talk it out. It's so rare. You know, when I was first elected to Congress, Lawrence, I really did think we all believed in the same thing. We just had different ways of getting there. When I left Congress, I was convinced, no, that's not true. This is a fight of good versus evil. It truly is. And what was exhibited by some, not all, but some of the Democrats in the way they've handled this, the way they've handled violence and death and an assassination. If we can't come together on an assassination of a private citizen, somebody who wasn't in elected office, when are we going to come together? I think it is truly a fight of good versus evil. I really do.
They could have also just opted to say nothing at all. And that would have been better than spewing out some of this nonsense. Jason, thank you so much for joining the program this morning.
Thanks, Lars.
And for more on this, Kayleigh McEnany, she's host of Saturday in America and co-host of Outnumbered. And yesterday you had this amazing opportunity to anchor the coverage with Lawrence Jones, and it was incredible. You did a great job.
Thank you. It was truly an honor. Thank you.
So Hillary Clinton decided to weigh in. Let's listen here.
I think this is right out of the authoritarian playbook. They're taking a terrible crime, this awful murder of this young man, and they are trying to use it, along with others of their rationales, to go after their political opponents. Leadership should try to bring people together, but instead, we're seeing more of the divisiveness.
I mean, I watched for hours, and I did not see more divisiveness.
Yeah, she must have taped that Sunday morning, I believe it was. I hope Hillary Clinton took the time to watch the 4 hours of the funeral, because it was a message of unity, of hope, the gospel message shared 5 times. It's beyond me the way Democrats have handled this. I commend the Democrats who came on board with the resolution honoring Charlie Kirk. You know, I spoke to House Speaker Mike Johnson Saturday, and he said, I personally drafted that resolution. I personally kept out anything that could have been perceived as partisan. I just simply wanted to condemn the assassination, commend law enforcement, and yet you had, to Chad's point, 55% of Democrats who couldn't get on board Hillary Clinton's comments. It's a time for unity, and the girl you're looking at did exactly that yesterday, a woman of God.
You know, you wonder, I mean, Ilhan Omar has made a lot of caustic comments about this. AOC has weighed in as well. And to your point, if Hillary Clinton made those comments on Sunday morning as opposed to Sunday afternoon, you hope that's the case after watching the ceremony.
Sure.
Right? And so the other members of Congress, but they're firing off last week with their criticism.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that there was a change of heart. I mean, look, you saw Elon Musk and Donald Trump come together. You heard the White House tweeted out revival. When is the last time a White House account has tweeted out revival? This was a coming together moment for everyone on the right, on the left, a come to Jesus moment. The live stream apparently had more than 100 million views. Think about that, 100 million views, according to Andrew Colvett. The world saw unity. The world saw hope in a very dim, bleak moment in our nation's history.
That's like Super Bowl numbers.
Yeah. So
really impressive.
Taking it from those large numbers to a smaller number, which is what it meant for the individuals and for the families. Erica Kirk spoke to family life. Let's play this and get your reaction.
To all the men watching around the world, accept Charlie's challenge and embrace true manhood. Be strong and courageous for your families. Love your wives and lead them. Love your children and protect them. And if you're a mother, please recognize that is the single most important ministry you have.
Kayleigh, at one point, I thought when you came back and you had a chance to have some remarks, and I sent you a note about it, because there was a part where she speaks about mothers or women being able to do both. You can have a family, you can have a career, you can do all of these things. And I thought that your reflection on that was very helpful in understanding her as she takes over as CEO of TP USA.
Yeah, the number one question I would get at the Young Women's Leadership Summit that Turning Point USA puts on is, how can I be a wife and have a career? How can I be a mother and have a career? She's an example, a shining example of that. If you have motherhood in your heart, it's there for a reason. If you have the desire to be married in your heart and be a wife, it's there for a reason. You can do both. And she gave a permission structure, really, to women. You can do this. You know, there is a feminist movement out there that says, no, be you, be single. She said, no, this is part of God's plan. If it's in your heart, you can do it. And it was very empowering. A huge part of Charlie's message is family.
Thanks for coming on today. We'll see you at noon, and congratulations on the new show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. It's perfect for you.
Good to get the first one down, isn't it?
It is. First one's behind me. On to number 2.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is like an old-time revival, isn't it? An old-time revival. For millions of Americans, especially young people, it is agonizing and unthinkable to say goodbye to a patriot whose heart still had so much to give. He devoted his life to converting young people to the conservative cause. How did he do? Take a look. How did he do?
President Trump crediting Charlie Kirk with bringing young Americans into the Republican tent, something that in many ways was previously unthinkable. Let's bring in Anthony Watson, Turning Point USA contributor, and CJ Womack, campus reform correspondent. Great to have you both. Anthony, you were there yesterday, and I noted this statistic that in the 8 days following Charlie Kirk's assassination, at high school and college campuses, there were 62,000 plus requests. I'm sure that probably does not surprise you, but what I'm curious is what can be done with that kind of interest?
Well, one of the things that I want to highlight that took place yesterday was one of Charlie's last words that he was saying in an interview that he did was that he wanted Turning Point to continue long after he was gone. Now, nobody foresaw the tragedy that took place that took him away from us prematurely, but the response and the call and the rise to people that are now wanting to get involved to preserve what he started is remarkable. You know, our phones have been ringing off the hook. You know, our field reps in the field and our national field program have been like swamped and busy because in the past it's been a challenge trying to get people to be brave and to step out and to actually have a response to the culture that needs more conservatives in there. And now that Charlie has spurred this, now we're seeing a response like we've never seen before. So his legacy is alive, you know, his mission is still ongoing, and his wife said it yesterday that all of the events and all of the things that we've been doing before are going to continue, and that's what I'm most excited about.
CJ, you are a student at UCLA, and listening to what Anthony just said, have you experienced that personally, and where do you think it goes from here?
I've absolutely experienced it personally growing up as a conservative in a progressive city like Los Angeles. I was never invited to proverbial seats at the table. I was never invited to conversations because people knew that I had a conservative mindset. And Charlie Kirk is the one that took us out of those circumstances, took us out of the classroom and into the quad, into the plaza, to have conversations with people that we disagreed with. And I think that's what set America's foundation, right? Free speech, debate, discussion. And I think that's what Charlie Kirk stood for. And that's, you know, what students around the country are going to start putting forth more effort to, is to have those debates. And that's thanks to Charlie Kirk.
Anthony, what would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions about Charlie Kirk, the way he approached debate, and how the TP USA under Erica Kirk's leadership will try to continue that?
Well, the biggest misconstrues that everyone's been saying this entire time is that, oh, Charlie's racist, Charlie's transphobic, Charlie's all of these things. But Charlie showed everybody in the face of culture and in the face of opposition how to be calm, how to be cool, how to be collected, and how to have conversation, because that's the missing art in our world today is nobody wants to talk. And these things, people think that it's, you know, preparing you for the lecture halls of Oxford or for, you know, Ivy League schools to like debate some of the greatest minds. That might be where some of this takes some people. But at the end of the day, the reason Charlie's impact and now Erica's mission is so key is because it's for everyday people. All of these topics that Charlie was talking about are the things that all of us fear and the things that all of us have had to work with. These are conversations that people avoid at the dinner tables with their family members, people that they've known their entire life, coworkers, friends. And so Charlie taught all of us how to have these dialects with people people who disagree to show that discourse and uniformity can still be a thing even if you disagree with each other. And now with everything that we're doing, it's now going back out in the field to actually take the people that want to be involved and now teach them the ways of doing that so that we can continue in this.
CJ, let me give you a final word about your plans for this next school year.
I'm going to go to the plaza. I'm going to go to the quad. I'm going to continue to have those conversations like Charlie would have wanted us to. And I think I speak for thousands, if not millions, of Gen Z conservatives who are going to do the same thing. The conversation is not over. Charlie would have wanted us to continue it. His legacy is not dead. And we're going to continue the debates on college campuses.
Anthony, CJ, thank you. I'm grateful that you were available and that you were both so willing to talk. I'm sure we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Republican Congressman Andy Biggs of the great state of Arizona, member of the Judiciary and Oversight Committees and candidate for Arizona governor. You were also at that memorial service for Charlie Kirk yesterday. I don't know if you could hear some of the young people speaking there, but I think that the fact that the movement will go on, did you feel that there too?
Oh yes, I did, Harris. I mean, it was so powerful. I had occasion to walk out into the crowd and talk to some people. They were fired up. This is not going away. This movement is going to be stronger than ever. Yeah, a lot of young people there, a lot of old people like myself and others, a lot of middle-aged. Oh, maybe I'm middle-aged. Okay, Harris, I'm going to take middle-aged.
Yeah, I want you to back up that old.
People.
We might be the same age. No, but I hear what you're saying.
A lot of people were there, and they were just enthusiastic, Harris, and the movement's going to be stronger than ever. I really believe that's true.
You know, the importance of, and I know we kind of kid about it, but the importance of all generations being around those young people who want to carry this movement forward is that we have the wisdom to be able to help them do that. And we know what that looks like. You're running for governor of that state. It will take all of us now.
Yeah, exactly right. And we had people from all over the country that I knew that came in, and just for this event because they love Charlie. But let's just put it this way: it's all hands on deck. If you really want to save the country, it is all hands on deck right now. We see more division than ever. We see more crisis than ever. But Charlie found a way to overcome that, and he was helping to bridge the gap. And that's the message, and that's the mission.
Yeah, from both sides of the political aisle, he did that. Wow, what an example. Yeah. Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett could use some schooling on that example. Instead, she's scolding her colleagues for not voting against a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy. That passed last week, and here's exactly what she said as that was happening.
I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurts my heart is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians. For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was.
Look at the number of people who voted against this. 58 Democrats. And no, they're not all people of color. They voted against that resolution. That's on top of another 60 who did not bother to even show up and vote or voted present, which is like, you know, having no courage to go either way. Here's Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who led the charge against honoring Charlie Kirk.
Today's resolution only underscores the majority's recklessness by choosing to author this condemnation and honoring on a purely partisan basis, instead of uniting Congress in this tragedy. His rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans.
So you see that. Totally on politics. Forget about the person assassinated, people killed. What did Republicans do when faced with something similar? Well, here's how they reacted to a resolution against political violence in Minnesota. Every single House Republican voted to condemn the attacks that killed State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, and critically injured State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, every single one. You want to talk about division? I mean, Congressman, that is that's embarrassing, and it's disgusting for Democrats that they would see it only one way.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I managed that resolution on the floor and we had the speaker come down and And we're like, this should be a unanimous vote. We think this should be a unanimous vote. We're going to condemn political violence. And by the way, their mischaracterization, their attack on Charlie Kirk, actually, it shows their ignorance, and it shows their lack of goodwill, and it shows their lack of willing to bridge a gap, their lack of willingness to try to resolve issues and problems and difficulties we have in the nation. That's what it shows to me, Harris. And it was really disgusting to me that so many people voted no in the first place. But then you had the yellow votes. I call those the yellow votes because they show up yellow on the board as present only. Oh. And that means that they're too afraid to cast a vote one way or the other. Shameful. It was only a minority of Democrats that voted to condemn this killer and to recognize Charlie Kirk for who he was. And what a shameful thing.
You know, you hear Jasmine Crockett. It's not the first time she's done it. Hakeem Jeffries has done it. Others do, even in leadership among Democrats. They turn this into purely a race issue. She said, oh, it was because of things that Charlie Kirk said. Yet when people listen and watch what he said, it doesn't back up fully what she's talking about. So do you feel that in the House? Because it sounds racist.
Well, I think it is racist, and I think it's unfortunate. But I mean, if you listen to Charlie was he believed that race was just a social construct. We need to move beyond that and treat all people equally and you know, as created by God. But this notion that everything's going to be race based and every decision you make is just, that's what's ignorant. That's what's sad. And we deal with it. And we move on. Yeah. But what Charlie did he loved them anyway. That's hard for me to do. As Trump said yesterday, that's real hard to do.
Congressman, thank you very much, Congressman Andy Biggs of the great state of Arizona. Good to have you.
As President Trump powerfully stated yesterday, this assassination was an attack on everything that makes the United States of America the greatest country on earth. But that attack has completely failed. The heartwarming response from the overwhelming majority of the American people over the past 2 weeks is all of the proof that you need. The assassin who took Charlie's life can destroy flesh and blood, but he can never destroy the values that Charlie stood for. All across the country, millions of Americans have prayed, hosted vigils, attended church services, became politically engaged for the first time, and honored the legacy of Charlie and the ideals he died speaking for. The beautiful memorial service attended by President Trump and 100,000 great Americans in State Farm Stadium yesterday was just the latest example. And Erica Kirk's mercy was one of the greatest acts of grace this world has ever seen. May God continue to watch over Erica and their beautiful children. Unfortunately, there have been some jarring exceptions to this unity. This past Friday, 58 House Democrats voted no, and 38 voted present on a resolution that simply stated, condemning in the strongest possible terms the assassination of Charles James Kirk and all forms of political violence. There were no strings attached to this vote. This was a simple gesture of human decency to denounce political violence. I wish I could say that this was only a fringe group, but 96 votes is nearly half of the entire House Democrat caucus. And they didn't just vote against this basic resolution condemning political violence. A number of those same Democrats took to the House floor to smear Charlie Kirk's name. The man wasn't even buried yet, and Democrat members of Congress were denigrating his memory on the floor of the House of Representatives. This was truly a sad moment and a clear reflection of how radical the Democrat Party has become. Many Democrats in elective office have now been totally captured by a radical fringe of the far-left base who want to dehumanize every person they disagree with. We must continue to call this wickedness out. It's the only way that our nation can heal. For too long, past leaders have offered platitudes while political violence has been allowed to fester and harm innocent Americans. There has been coordinated campaigns dating back years, spearheaded by radical left-wing organizations centered on dehumanizing, intimidating, doxing, and even attacking Americans whom they disagree with. These groups have radicalized impressionable individuals to foment violence. An attempted transgender assassin traveled to Justice Brett Kavanaugh's family home with plans to end his life. An attempted assassin came within an inch of ending President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania. And on the campaign trail, another attempted assassin tried to kill the president at his golf club in Florida. A left-wing assassin shot United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson right in the back in the heart of New York City. ICE agents are facing a more than 1,000% increase in assaults for simply doing their jobs. Violent radical left-wing mobs engaged in illegal behavior, targeted Jewish Americans, and shut down America's college campuses under the previous administration. Left-wing mobs burned down Tesla dealerships out of, quote, protest of Elon Musk and his policies. In May, a left-wing activist shouting "Free Palestine" murdered 2 innocent Israeli embassy staffers outside of the D.C. Jewish Museum here in Washington. These are just a few examples, prominent examples, of the growing left-wing political violence in our country. Enough is enough, and as President Trump has promised, he will directly address the dark sources funding and supporting this domestic terrorism to finally restore order in our country. The American people can expect further, very strong action on this very soon. Everyone, Republican, Democrat, everyone in between, we all deserve to live in a country where we do not have to fear for our lives simply for stating what we believe in.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Kayleigh McEnany, Harold Ford Jr., Jesse Waters, and Tyrus. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. A heartbreaking farewell to Charlie Kirk. Nearly 100,000 people packed State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, an entire football stadium filled to capacity with overflow venues close by for a tribute to the conservative icon who reshaped American politics and championed the return of debate and civility. President Trump inviting Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, to the stage and sharing a moment of remembrance. And the most powerful moment, she publicly forgave the killer of her husband.
After Charlie's assassination, we didn't see violence. We didn't see rioting. We didn't see revolution. Instead, we saw what my husband always prayed he would see in this country. We saw revival. That young man. I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love.
And here's President Trump sharing his remembrance of Charlie Kirk.
Our country was robbed of one of the brightest lights of our times, a giant of his generation, and above all, a devoted husband, father, son, Christian, and patriot. Our greatest evangelist for American liberty became immortal. He's a martyr now for American freedom. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right.
It was a remarkable day. I watched everything from where I was, but Jesse, you were there and had an up close and personal experience.
Charlie dreamed of yesterday. 100,000 people. It was broadcast on all 3 networks, all cables throughout the entire world, talking about faith, family, America first, the president, the cabinet. It was the perfect Charlie Kirk turning point event. And I know he was looking down and he was happy. Erica said something that stuck with me. She said, one time Charlie prayed and asked God, send me. And she said, you don't understand how powerful that is to ask God to do that, because God did. God, in his divine way, used Charlie. And I don't think we're capable of fully understanding why or how, but we're starting to figure it out. And he was a missionary. And it reminded everybody that Christianity really is the bedrock of Western civilization. And in a way, Charlie was the bedrock of this administration. And all the people there wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Charlie Kirk. It made everybody, including myself and J.D. Vance, come out and say, I rarely talk about my Christian faith publicly. And in the last week, I've talked more about Jesus Christ than I ever have in my entire public life. I feel that way. The rest of the country, I know, feels that way. And that's a beautiful thing. Listening to the stories of everybody, the speaker lineup, talk about how he would wake up at 5 a.m. and work till 11 o'clock, how he would sleep on people's couches, how he didn't take a salary for the first 5 years, how he would just see somebody struggling and then pray for them. That's really who Charlie was. And I know that the American people are kind of struggling with how to understand this. And Donald Trump is struggling himself. You have Erica come out and you say, I forgive the person that killed my husband. I could never do that. I know many people in this country could not, after a week, say that. After years, say that. And that's great, because she is a woman of God, and that is incredibly humble to do. Donald Trump is just like the rest of us, though. After what they've done to him, after what they did to Charlie, he doesn't want to forgive. He actually does hate the people that hate him. And that's okay, too. He's not perfect. He's going to say it how it is. He's an authentic guy. He's not going to pretend to be a fake Christian. And there's a part of the country that says we have to forgive these people. And there's another part of the country that says no. And that's where we are as a country. And that's okay. And we'll grow as a country, both factions together, and try to heal together.
Harold Ford Jr., I haven't had a chance to see you today, but welcome back around the table.
Good to be back.
Good to see you.
Good to be with everybody. Sunday was a moving day. I would agree with you, Jesse. It was inspiring on a lot of levels to watch a young mom, a young wife, a young woman who is now in charge and head of the organization that her husband started, an organization she interviewed at because she believes so firmly in the mission. Practice her Christianity at the highest of levels. The two things the Bible instructs us to do, asks us to do, implores us to do, hopes we're able to do as Christians is to love and forgive. Her words had to not only be painful to utter, but it was a journey she had to obviously go through to get there. We were reminded of terrible moments in our nation's history where those who have forgiven those who have caused harm to them and their families. I'm reminded of the Emmanuel A and Me Church 10 years ago, where those loved ones and family members said they forgave that young man who came into a prayer group and killed their relatives. He was a transformative figure, Jess. As I said, he and I did not agree on everything, but I was surprised that some of my friends in the Democratic Party in the House could not find a way to vote in favor of the resolution. The resolution, in my mind, whether you agreed with Charlie or not, that's not what it was about. It was about whether or not you believed that speech indeed was free and that speech should be protected and that people shouldn't be assassinated or killed or harmed or had violent acts imposed against them because of their views or because you disagree with their views. This was an enormous outpouring for this young man and for his family. And I wish his wife and his kids nothing but the very best as they continue to not only celebrate his life, but to chart their own course.
I was going to turn to you, Tyrus, for anything you want to say, but one thing that was repeated throughout everybody's remarks was that this movement lives on, and it seems to me it will grow.
Yeah, I would imagine it will grow, but I think when you look at the climate, right, when you see there's so many people are willing to go on social media and take pot shots and say horrible things, the message from his family has set the bar at such a high level to where you're not seeing, no one's calling for revenge, no one's calling for more heads to roll. They're like, to be that strong to say, I forgive you. That wasn't for him. That wasn't for that bastard assassin. That was for them, their family, the people who were there. She is taking a bold step, a tough step that, to Jesse's right, a lot of us couldn't say that. But that also is the same thing as saying, remember, it's peaceful. Remember to do the right thing. don't attack people, don't use this as your war cry. As we see on the other side, they're not able to do that right now. At least individuals who claim to be in the Democratic Party use the hate words and violence for anything that's wrong to them. I think that was the most powerful thing. Whether what your religious affiliation is or not, you can stand by that. You can be like, I need to be like that, and I need to respond in kind to that. If they're not doing, no one in there was chanting for anything horrible. Nobody wanted to see war or a civil war or we need retribution. It was all about love and honoring people and just being better to each other. And that message works for everyone, whether you go to church or you don't. That's the message that stuck with me.
Kaylee, I thought you and Lawrence Jones did an incredible job yesterday. I appreciated that you guided me through the whole afternoon. And I wonder now that you've had a little bit of time to process that experience, being a young mother yourself of a newborn baby and knowing Erica, what you think now.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dana. You know, I think back to this whole 12, 13-day period, and I think about September 9th. Erica said that Charlie couldn't sleep. She said he was so excited for this college tour. She said it was like an Olympic-style event for him. He would have whiteboards and he would diagram and plan, you know, different thought patterns of how it could go with students. And he was ready. And he woke up and he said it was going to be a great day. And she was able to text him, "I love you." And he went off to do his job, to engage in civil discourse. And she recounts in the New York Times about being on the plane, going to pick up her husband's body and looking out and seeing the clouds and seeing the mountains and thinking this was the last thing Charlie saw. And then when she told the doctor, yes, I do want to see his body, she said he had a half smile on his face. And she knew the moment that bullet hit him, when he closed his eyes, the next thing he saw was Jesus Christ. And I think about this incredible woman you're looking at. And I think she incurred tragedy at the deepest possible level. And she chose to turn it into triumph. And because of Erica Kirk and the courage she had to say, "I forgive you," and to say, "Thy will be done," and to say to the New York Times, his plan is greater than my own. I'm a strong believer this was God's plan. For her to have that courage, I think September 10th, the day Charlie was killed, was as cataclysmic as November 5th, the day Donald Trump was elected, if not more so. Donald Trump himself said, this isn't just a political moment. This is a spiritual reawakening happening in the country. I think the fruits of what this young woman did in the Kirk family and giving us these 4 hours to come to know Christ deeper, it's going to live on beyond a presidency, beyond an election. I think she has changed a generation and she'll continue to do so. The New York Post, you hold it up, "I forgive you" on the cover of the New York Post. The Secretary of State standing on a stage, giving a gospel message and then talking about the second coming of Christ, the Vice President, the President. This is going to echo for a generation. And what a legacy Charlie Kirk has left.
All right, thank you, everyone. Up next, Jimmy Kimmel, believe it or not, he's set to return to air after making false comments about the suspected killer of Charlie Kirk.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.